Southern Ohio Farm Show. This is Gigi Neal of OSU Extension in Clermont County, Agricultural and Natural Resources Educator.
I'm James Morris, the Agricultural and Natural Resources and Community Development Educator for The Ohio State University Extension in Brown County.
Hello, my name is Richard Purdon. I'm with the Ohio State University Extension. I am the Ag and Natural Resource Educator for Adams County and the Community Development Educator for Adams County, Ohio.
And I'm Brooke Beam, the Ohio State University Extension Educator for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Community Development in Highland County. And we will be your hosts for the Southern Ohio Farm Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Danielle Combs, and I'm one of the 4-H educators here in Highland County.
My name is Kathy Brunis, and I'm another 4-H educator here in Highland County. And we would like to welcome you to 4-H. If you're not in a 4-H club yet, how do you join, Danielle?
Great question. So you can contact the Highland County Extension Office. Our number and our email are going to be found below.
There's a lot of clubs in the county, isn't there?
There are more than 30 clubs here in Highland County.
And if I'm right, there's over 200 projects that you can choose from. Not just animal projects, but we have all kinds of different projects.
I'd like to tell our older 4-H members is about the Teen Leadership Council. This year, I am serving as the Vice President of Leadership on the Ohio 4-H Teen Leadership Council. And we have a really wonderful group of teams from around the state that work together to facilitate luncheons, statewide events, and other things like that, as well as working within our council to develop leadership skills and the things that you can carry from your 4-H career into your future college or career aspirations. This is a really amazing opportunity, and again, I would recommend it for anyone who's interested in taking that next step in their 4-H career. Applications for this are available in the fall, and I look forward to seeing all of you and taking advantage of that opportunity in the future. And here are some of our other junior leaders to tell you about the projects that they take.
If you're thinking about joining 4-H but you are unsure why you should, here are some reasons why.
It's a good opportunity to improve your leadership skills.
You can also improve your public speaking.
You can learn more about different topics by completing projects and attending different events.
If you want to be in 4-H but you don't want to take an animal project or you can't take an animal project, there's still plenty of other things for you to be able to do.
There are plenty of different special interest projects where everyone can find something that they are interested in doing.
Some of the ones that we have done are cats,
cooking,
first aid,
photography,
and laundry.
Hi, my name is Anne-Marie Ogden, and I have been at 4-H for 9 years, including Quiverbuds. The type of projects that I do are cooking, sewing, and I also show dogs. The dog that I show currently is named Scotty, and he is a Scottish Terrier. The groups and 4-H projects that I'm a part of are Canine Commanders, in which I take my dogs through and my cooking and sewing, and then I'm also part of Junior Fair Board and Junior Leaders and FCS Board. The reason that I joined 4-H was to make new experiences, have new leadership opportunities, and to make new friends. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawson Osborne. I'm a senior in Lynchburg Clay High School, and I've been on the Highland County Junior Leaders for 5 years. Last year, I served as president of the Junior Leaders. Being involved in 4-H has been one of the most beneficial things for my life so far. When I first got involved in 4-H, it was mainly just to show cattle, which I do love doing and is still to this day my favorite project. However, I was able to widen my range and go out into multiple nutrition and leadership projects, which I have qualified to state fair before and had much success in. I couldn't be prouder to be a member of 4-H, and would encourage anyone who is looking to prepare themselves for their life ahead to join 4-H. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kaya Cheney, and this is my 11th year in 4-H. I show various FCS projects such as sewing, cooking, art, and photography. I also show animals such as dogs, goats, and hopefully this year sheep. I have 2 dogs. My first dog is an Australian Shepherd, and his name is Neptune, and my second dog is an Aussie Doodle, and her name is Ace. I am in various clubs such as Canine Commanders, Fantastics, FCS, Junior Leaders, Junior Fair Board, and 4-H Committee. The reason I decided to do 4-H was for the experience. I like presenting the judge all my hard work, and hopefully it pays off with a ribbon or maybe even a plate. And the reason I am in all these extra clubs is to hopefully gain more scholarships one day. I'm hoping that it'll help pay for my college as it's very expensive.
Okay, so these are BB's babies. You can see sometimes they're big, sometimes they're not, but sometimes they'll be really, really small, and that's called a peanut. You usually don't keep those because they can't be shown. But you may think like, oh, maybe this one's a peanut, but peanuts are really, really small. They're probably only about that big when they're born. But yeah, this is a broken black right here. This one's also a broken black, and then that one's just a black. Thank you guys for listening to my presentation. I hope this really encourages you guys to join 4-H this year, because it really is a really amazing thing.
Much for your time, and I'm very, very excited to see all of you taking advantage of the things that you can do in 4-H outside of the projects you take in your club.
I'm Gigi Neal with OSU Extension in Clermont County, Agriculture and Natural Resources. And today we're at the Clermont County Park District at Pattison Park, bringing you information about maple syrup production. You can find more information at clermontparks.org.
Hi everyone, I'm Robin from the Clermont County Park District, and we're here at Pattison Park where we have maple syrup making going on. I'm in the sugar shack, and out behind us we have a trail through our sugar bush with maple trees that are tapped. We have a number of things going on here, and you can just come visit anytime in the next 2 weeks and see our maple setup on the trail. But we'll be opening up the whole sugar shack as well for our maple open houses, and you can check our website at clermontparks.org under naturalist programs to see what we have going on here. So, well, first off, we have hand drills that we're making our holes with, mostly because we have a lot of kids coming through and it's fun for them to use. You are welcome to use a power drill if you're drilling your own tree. But we'll get a drill bit that's the right size for our spile here. And the spile is kind of a hollow tube that you can stick into the tree. This one is 5/16 of an inch. A lot of the older ones are larger than that, but they realized the smaller hole they make, the healthier it is for the tree. And I have already sanitized this drill bit and rubbing alcohol because we don't want to spread diseases between the trees. So we'll drill down into there, and we'll go about 1.5 inches deep for these spiles. That allows a little area at the end for the sap to pool, and then room enough for the spile to fit in so it will flow out. You also might notice that I've gone at a very slight upward angle, and that's just so the syrup will flow down out of the tree. If you went upward, it's just going to pool and sit down in the tree. So we'll get that and take it out. Then I have here just some clean water. We'll spray that out, clean any wood chips that may have gotten in, and that helps keep the tree healthier and helps prevent bacteria from forming in there, so it makes the tap hole work a little longer. We'll stick that in and just kind of gently hammer it in. If you hammer too hard, you can split the tree, but you want to make sure that it's attached pretty well and that you can't pull it out by hand, because otherwise your bucket will fall off. So with ours, we just then hang the bucket. Apparently that's too far in. Hang the bucket right on this notch here. And we put a lid on. And lids help keep all of that wood chips and stuff out of it, and a lot of animals will want to drink out of maple pails because to them the sap does taste really sweet, even though it doesn't to us. So that's tapping a tree. I'd like to note that this is a walnut tree, not a maple tree as well, so you can tap a few other kinds of trees including walnut. And this year we're going to try and make a little bit of walnut sap, which I've never tried before, but I hear it tastes different. The syrup and the sap will taste different than the maple. So that'll be interesting. We're going to visit our sugar bush trail and collect some sap. We have a number of maple trees that are tapped here. We have, I believe, 23 when we counted them. We're not always great at counting all the trees. And then we have 3 walnut trees that are right up here. So we do it kind of the old-fashioned way, which is just carrying buckets out into the woods and carrying our sap back. So let's go look at a bucket. The sap is dripping on this one. Some of the trees produce a lot of sap and some aren't producing a lot in here. But you need to have the right weather to be able to get sap out of your tree. So it needs to have been below freezing recently and then be above freezing during the day. Sunny days are the best to have sap flowing out of the trees. If it's below freezing, of course, all the sap in the tree is frozen. So we just take this bucket, pour it in our other plastic buckets, and we'll carry this sap back up to the sugar shack. And more professional and modern sugar bushes, they'll have a series of tubing that's often run by a vacuum pump, and they'll pump all of their sap to their sugar shack, which just sounds amazing. I would love to have something like that, but it's not as pretty as the old traditional type anyways.
Just another way to collect with 2 creating into a bucket.
After we bring the sap in from the woods, we fill up this tank up here with it. And I'm going to filter the sap because things like chips of wood, bugs, all kinds of little bugs trying to eat sap can be in it, and we want to get that stuff out before it gets in our evaporator. And we'll filter the syrup again later on. So I'll just stick the filter in there. And then pour sap into this storage tank. This is 35 gallons of sap we can store in here. And if we have a good sap run, we can easily get more than 35 gallons, and we'll end up storing in food safe trash cans or something like that. The sap needs to stay cool, so storing it in bigger containers like that is better. It's kind of like milk, that it has to stay cool, be refrigerated, and it'll only last for about 7 days before it starts going bad. But it connects to the evaporator so we can have a continuous flow. The reason I have it turned off is it has a little leak here, so I'll only turn it on when it's working. But ideally, it would flow through here, and there's a float valve on the evaporator. This float valve will go down when water is lower, and that allows sap to come in, and then it'll move up when the water is higher in here, stopping the sap from coming up, and that allows us to maintain a constant level of sap in the evaporator, which is really great because if it gets too low, it's surprising how easy you can burn the sap and end up ruining a whole batch of syrup. The evaporator itself, as it's warming up here, how it works, as we said, sap is flowing into the float valve, and you can see a pipe that's connecting to the inside of the evaporator. That will then flow in this far side of the evaporator, and this tank is called the sap pan because that's where the sap's flowing in, so it's usually lighter colored material. You can probably see looks a lot like water, maybe a little darker. And down here they have those big long flues, kind of like you took a piece of metal and folded it up, and those flues go all the way down into the flame that's in our stove here. So that allows this tank to warm up really fast. You can see it steaming already. So this is where most of the evaporation is taking place. And we need to go all the way from 2 or 3% sugar in the sap we're collecting to 66 or 67% sugar in syrup. So you're evaporating a whole lot of water off. And that equates to, it takes about 40 gallons of sap that we collect to make 1 gallon of syrup. So it's really going down. So sap will flow in here, then you have a tube on this side, and the fresh sap coming in is kind of pushing the more sugary sap through the evaporator. And that continues as we move on to our syrup pan. This one's usually a little yellower. Right now, none of this sap is quite syrup yet. It's all pretty light sap. So you can see the syrup color a little bit, but same thing will happen. The sap kind of weaves back and forth like a lazy river going through here, and eventually, once it's sugary enough, you take it out on this valve. And we don't actually have full syrup most of the time when you're taking the sap, or almost syrup as I like to call it, out. So most of the time, the sap you're looking at here, when we're taking it out, it's only going to be around 50% sugar because it becomes hard to control the temperature of the oven using wood or burning wood here. It can be pretty hard to make sure that you don't burn it. But we'll kind of take a look at the sap, or almost syrup, when we're ready to take it out and pour it down like this. And once you get to the point that this is aproning and you see that sticky sap coming off, then it's ready to be taken off. And we can also use a hydrometer to measure that. Usually when I'm just taking the sap or almost syrup off, I don't use a hydrometer because we're still going to be doing a little bit more cooking in the future. When we take it off, and this is the part for you guys, I'm not sure, since we only recently got sap, we don't have any syrup to be filtered at the moment. But what we would do is put this under that valve, open the valve, and let it go through this synthetic filter. It feels a little like felt. We'd catch all of that in a bucket and take this bucket to what's right behind you, which is a gas-powered little mini evaporator. This is kind of a little mini evaporator, and it's just one big tank inside. And really, you can use almost anything as an evaporator. We have a fancy one over there with the flues, but just a pot works as an evaporator. So we'll pour that almost syrup into here. That's about 50% sugar. And, oftentimes I'll actually filter it even a second time. So I'll pour it through this other filter, because there's a lot of small particles of little tiny sugar sand. And no matter how much we filter, there's usually a little bit left in this syrup, but I try to get out as much as I can. So we'll pour that in there and just attach that right to a tank, and it can slowly boil in here. This one has a thermometer attached right to it, and that helps out a lot because we're going for 7 degrees above boiling point is how hot we're trying to get the syrup to be. So we can watch that thermometer, and when it's getting to the right point, just shut the tank right off, and we don't have the syrup heating up anymore. And this is when I'd actually use a hydrometer to measure the content of our syrup, and we can look at this with sap. This hydrometer basically has a scale of sugar content on it. You can see with the lower numbers at the top and the higher numbers at the bottom. They call this a brick scale, but it translates directly to percent sugar. So if you see 65 on there, that's 65% sugar. These things are really fragile, so we have to be careful with them all the time. It's basically hollow glass with a heavy metal material down in the bottom. And We measure the sugar content by how dense the liquid is. So the farther down this sinks, the more watery it is, while the higher it goes up, the more syrupy it is. As you'd imagine, syrup is denser. And it might be hard to see in there, but I drop this down in, and wherever the surface of that liquid touches the hydrometer is the percent sugar. If I let this one go, it's probably going to go pretty far down because this is mostly sap right now. So we have our glass jars that are sanitized and clean. Often we buy brand new ones each time, but if we're reusing any, we have to boil them just like you would with canning. And then all you have to do, the nozzle of this fits perfectly onto our glass bottle, and you'd open it up and fill with syrup, and try not to overflow it, and close it exactly at the right time and put your lid on. So it's a really cool little evaporator we have there. Multiple grades of syrup, they used to be classified differently, but now they're all called grade A. In the past you had grade A and B and so on. And in the past the light syrup was classified as the best syrup, while as you go farther this way, the dark was the worst syrup. And that's because this light one only has a little bit of maple flavor, so it's kind of a delicate light flavor, while the dark was just so mapley that if you tried to use it for anything besides pancakes or something you really want it to be maple flavored, it might be overwhelming. So they're all grade A golden, and then grade A amber, and grade A dark. And that just depends on what kind of syrup flavor you like, if you like yours really strong or really light. I'm the really strong direction. I like mine to be stronger than this, maybe even burnt a little bit, so it's super mapley flavored. And we'll actually grade, so I have one somewhere. I'll fill this with the syrup and compare to the other three to determine what grade our syrup is.
Thank you, Robin. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about maple syrup production. It is definitely a labor-intensive process that yields some very sweet treats. For those of you who are interested in learning more about maple syrup, tune in next week where we'll discuss what other products can be made from maple syrup and how you can use maple syrup in your kitchen at home for some sweet treats that go beyond breakfast. If you've been driving around Clinton, Greene, and Montgomery counties since Monday of this week, you may have seen a very unique piece of machinery traveling the roads. A 767 fuselage has been moved from the Wilmington Airpark to the Wright-Patt Air Force Base. The fuselage of the airplane is 150 feet long, 22 feet wide, 19 feet high, and it weighs 124,000 pounds. The plane will be used as an air medical trainer once it reaches its final destination. Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show. We hope that you have a great week, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week for another all-new episode and some more ideas for what you can make with maple syrup.